Right, today we are going to be learning about section 3.1, and it is called estimating. We are going to be learning about different ways to estimate numbers. So you think a lot in the Go Math notebook that we did last year, and you've been doing the whole time, it's been asking you to estimate compatible numbers. And now we're going to go back to the more traditional way, where if it's a 5 or above, or let's write that down, 5 or more, round up, 4 or less, round down to the whole number. That's what we're going to be kind of doing from now on, because it's a more easy way to estimate. All right, so the first way we are going to do is by rounding first. Actually, let's put a 1 because this is our first way that we're talking about estimating. That's just kind of a parenthesis thing. Okay, so rounding first. How this way works is basically like I just said. Let's say we are going, here's an example. Let's say we have the number 135 and 95 hundredths, 15 and 90 hundredths, and 24 and 5 hundredths. Okay, so if I want to add all those numbers up, I could do it. Remember, when we add decimals, we have to line up decimal points. All right. So I'm going to look at my first number. It is 135 and 95 hundredths. I'm going to say that number is really close to 140. How I got that is I want it to be a whole number. I don't want to be adding decimal points in this strategy. So I'm going to look at my whole numbers, 135, and the 5 rounds up the 3 to be 140. Then if I look at my next number, 15 and 90 hundredths or 9 tenths. And what I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to look at my whole numbers, my integer, and I'm going to round the 5 is going to round up to a 2. The 1 is going to round up to a 2, so that 15 is going to round up to 20. I'm just looking at these like whole numbers. Then my last number I'm looking at is going to be 24. If I look at 24, the 4, it is 4 or less, we're going to round it down to 20. Okay, so 140 plus 20, I can do that in my head. And it is 180. So we know our number is going to be close to 180 after all is said and done. So let's try a different method after this. So this one's just kind of your typical estimating method. If your whole number is 5 or more, we're going to round it up the tens. And if it's 4 or less, we're going to round it down so that they're nice even numbers that we can work with in our heads. So let's try the next form of estimating. All right, so this type of estimating is called front-end estimation. And this, you guys, is very, very tricky. So just hold on with me. If I'm doing something you don't get, watch it again and listen to me explain it and practice it on your own. It will tell you in your book when you're doing your exercises to use front-end estimation, to use rounding estimation, to use the last kind, which is called clustering estimation. So it is going to be specific as to which one you need to know. So please make sure if there's a one that you don't get, that you rewatch that part. At the end, I'm going to do a couple of examples so that we can kind of get the hang of it as well. So don't freak out. I'm only going to do one example to introduce it, and then we'll go back and do some more examples of each one. So how front-end estimation works is there are 3 steps that we need to do. So let's write steps and underline it. Okay, so our first step that we need to do is add the front end digit. Okay, so if we add the front end digit, that just means add the whole numbers or the integers if they are negative as well. Then step 2 is to round to estimate remaining fit a G down there, digit sum. D-I-G-I-T-S-U-M. Okay, there we go. Then our last step is to combine estimates. I apologize for the messy handwriting. I again forgot my stylus at school, so it is a little, I'm just using my finger. All right, so what this means, I'm going to really try and fit it in down here, but I might have a hard time doing that. Okay, so I might have to move this up. So make sure you get all this written down before you keep watching the video. I am going to move it up, hopefully. There we go. Make sure to keep my steps in though so that we don't forget what we need to do. Okay, so here's our example. If I need to add 2 79/100ths, 1 73/100ths, and 1 10/100ths, what I'm first going to do is add the front end digits. So step 1, I am going to add 2. Where'd I get the 2? Right here. Plus 1. Plus 1. Again, the front end digits, I'm just adding them. If they were crazy numbers, then I'd estimate them so that they're easier to add. But these ones are pretty easy. I can do 2 plus 1 plus 1 in my head, and I know that I'm going to get 4. Okay, so now step 2 is to round to estimate remaining digit sum. So the remaining digits, which is all of the decimal, all of the hundredths, we need to estimate them and see what we get when we estimate them. So what I would round 79/100ths to is I'm going to be looking at this 9 right here. I see it's bigger than 5, so I'm going to round this one up to 8/10ths or 80/100ths. Then I'm going to add that to this one. If I look at my 3, it's 4 or less. So I know that I need to keep the 7 the same. So I'm going to add to the 80/100ths a 70/100ths because 73 would round down to 70. Then lastly, I'm going to look at this one, and it is already nice. It is already rounded and estimated for us. So I just need to add 10/100ths to my final number. So 80 plus 70 is 150, plus 10 more is 160. But be very careful how you're going to write this number. Can I add them in my head? Yes, I get 150. But wait a minute, it's not 150. I need to put my decimal point in there. My decimal point is going right between the 1 and the 5. Let me erase that so it's very clearly written. Don't write it as 150. It is 1 50/100ths after I add them together. If that is hard for you to see, then I would recommend lining up your decimal points. 80 plus 70/100ths would be 0, 5. Bring down my decimal point, add the 1. 1 50/100ths plus 10 more hundredths would be 1 60/100ths. Okay, so If you can't see in your head that 80 hundredths plus 70 hundredths plus 10 hundredths is 1 and 50 hundredths, then I want you to line up the decimal points and add them out as you would normally. Okay, the more we practice with this, the more you will be able to do it in your head. And so it's not a bad thing if it doesn't make sense to you right now. Okay, so then on my final step 3, 1 and 50 hundredths was these two, but then I need to add in my 10 hundredths, so I get 1 and 60 hundredths. Ooh, don't want to forget that. Okay, so my step 3 is as following. I need to do 4 plus 1 and 60 hundredths. Okay, where did I get the 1 and 60 hundredths from? Right there. Where did I get the 4 from? Right there. So I added my whole numbers, then I rounded my decimals, my hundredths, to get my final answer. So what we need to do to get that answer is add 4, make sure to line up your decimal points, plus 1 and 60 hundredths. So I would get 5 and 60 hundredths for my answer. Again, in your book, it's going to tell you to do estimate using front end estimation. So that's what you need to do. It might be easier for you to do just regular old round to estimate, but that's not what I want you to be doing. I want you to try to have a few different strategies so that when it comes to estimating, maybe it'd be easier to use front-end estimation than it would to use just regular old rounding, because this type of estimation is much more accurate than just regular old round estimation. Because if I would have done that, I would have done 3 plus 2 plus 1, so I would have gotten the answer of 6. So this is much more accurate than the regular old round estimation. Okay, let's look at our last type of estimation, and it's called clustering. All right, so our step 3, our third type of estimating is called clustering. Clustering, what that means is we are going to group. Let's put a little dot so we know this is our definition. We're going to group numbers together. We're going to group numbers together that are close to the same value. Okay, what's that's going to look like is this. So it'll say estimate using clustering and that type of thing. So if we look at our first number, 12 and 31 hundredths, 3 and 20 hundredths, 11 and 98 hundredths, 12 and 1 hundredth, 3 and 60 hundredths, and 2 and 84 hundredths. If we wanted to add them all up together, how I would do it is I would say, okay, this one's close to 12, this one's close to 12, and this one's close to 12. So how I would write that is I have 3 numbers that are close to 12. So I'm going to do 3 times 12 plus this one's close to 3, this one's close to 3, as well as that one. So I'm going to do plus 3 because I have 3 numbers that are close to the number 3. So there's how I can figure it out. 3 times 12, whenever I have a number that's right next to the parentheses with a number in the middle, I have to multiply them. So 12 times 3 is 36. plus, bring that plus down. 3 times 3 is 9. So 36, let's pick a new color here. 36 plus 9 is 45. So what clustering does is it says, okay, I have these three numbers that are close to 12. So they are going to be, so I'm going to do 3 times 12. Then I have these three numbers that are close to 3. So I'm going to do 3 times 3 and then just add them together. So again, this is just another strategy. And we're going to be practicing all of these right now. And then you, after there, kind of get to pick which one you like best. So let's try a few examples from the book. These are on your homework. So I'm going to give you a couple answers to get you started on that. So the first one I'm going to do is number 1 on page 130. In my book, it might be different in your book. And it says, identify the underlined place value, then round each number to that place value. So my first number is 27 and 3,856 ten-thousandths. Then it has the 8 underlined. So in the directions it says, identify the underlined place value. So I have to the first part of my answer is I'm going to say that is the hundredths. Hundredths place. Okay, so now I need to round to that place value. So when it says that, I'm going to look at the number that's before the underlined one, and I'm going to say, is that 5 or bigger, or is that 4 or smaller? Well, it's 5 or bigger, so we're going to round up. So that means when I round up my new number, this is how I write my answer. So I write hundredths, and then I write 27 and 39 hundredths as my answer. This is my whole answer. I'm going to remember to put a box around it so that when I'm grading it, I can see your answer very quickly. So then let's take a peek at number 5. Number 5 says, round to the underlined place value. So in number 5, we don't have to identify it. We just have to round to it. Our first number is 345 and 678 thousandths. And the 6 is underlined. So again, I just look at that number that's right before it. Sorry, right after it. And I see, is that 5 or bigger or 4 or smaller? It is 5 or bigger because it is a 7. So that means my 6 is going to round up to a 7. So when I round this, I'm going to write my answer as 345 and 7/10. Put a box around it because that is my answer. And it makes it a lot easier for me to grade when your box is around it. We're not going to do number 6. You can do that one on your own. Let's try another one, number 9. So for number 9, it says estimate by rounding. So that means we're just going to look at our whole numbers to try to figure out what the answer is. So our problem says $37.99 minus $27.32. Okay, so I would round this one to about 40 because I'm going to look at the 7 right here, round that up, so it's going to be about 40 minus, looking at my whole numbers again, so I'm going to look at that ones place. The 7 would round up again, so that would be about 30. And we know that 40 minus 30 equals 10. So when you write your answer, you will write about $10. I would also accept this answer. Whenever we write like a squiggly equal sign, that also means about. So if you don't want to write about out, you can write the squiggly sign and then say $10. So if this is how you decide to write your answer, write it like that, put a box around it. If this is how you decide you write your answer, put a box around it. Again, that sign right there means about. That's kind of our, when we're estimating, equal sign, per se. Okay, so let's try doing number 15, which is a front-end estimation problem. Number 15 says add, using front-end estimation, 6 4/100 plus 3, I suppose I could just talk money, $3.45 plus $4.43. Okay, so remember, using front-end estimation, we kind of divide our numbers up with the decimal point. So by rounding, or not rounding, but adding our whole numbers or our integers. So 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 4 more is 13. So that's our step 1, add the whole numbers. Then our step 2 is to add or round, estimate to round the decimal points, the numbers after the decimal point. So I would round 4/100, and I'll give it 5/100. I would round it to 5/100 because I can work with 5 pretty easy. Plus 45, that's pretty easy to me. But if I'm wanting to round it, I could round it up to 50/100. And then I'm going to round 43/100 down to 40. Okay, so if I add these up, 50 plus 40, or 50/100 plus 40/100, would give me 90/100 plus 5/100 would give me 95/100. Then I just need to really bring down my 13 because I didn't have any whole numbers this time. So my answer would be 13 and 95/100. Do my little squiggly lines, which means about 13 and 95/100. So again, this is just rounding your whole numbers and rounding the numbers after the decimal point and then adding them together at the end. The point of this is that you would be able to do this in your head. Okay, can you add 50/100 and 40/100 and get 90/100 in your head? Yeah. And then add 5 more hundreds, 95/100. And we can add 6 plus 3 plus 4 in our head as well. So this is just kind of a way for you to add them in your head. So if you're at the grocery store, you can figure out about what your total will be so that you know you have enough money. Okay, let's try number 20 together. All right, the next one we are going to do is number 20, and that one says 44 87/100 plus 42 712 and 43 5/10. Okay, so if I'm using clustering, that means I have to round them all to about the same number and figure out how many there are of each one, then I need to multiply by that. Okay, that was confusing how I explained it. Let's just do it. So I see 44, I see 42, and I see 43. I want to pick a number that's right in the middle of all those numbers. So the best number to pick for this one would be 43 because it's right in the middle of all of those 3 numbers. Then I need to ask myself, how many numbers do I have that are close to 43? Got 1, 2, 3, so I am going to do 3 times 43 to get my answer. Now on your work, I know you're going to be tempted to do 43 times 3 and that's all you write. But you must, in order to get credit for this, write this part down too. Because I need to see what you're rounding them to and how many you're multiplying them by. If this is scratch work on the side, that's fine because I'm going to use it. I don't know how to multiply 43 times 3 in my head. So you can write it down, but that better not be the only thing you write down. Or I'll hand your paper back to you and you'll have to correct it. Okay, so I have 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. So my answer is about, remember, write the squiggly equal sign, $129. Except for this one doesn't have dollars on it. So we're just going to write, that's about 129. Then I put my box. This is your answer right here. This is side work. Can it be on there? Yes. Does it have to be nice and neat in with your work? Some are close to it. But this, the boxed part, is what I really need to see. Okay, so now on number 25, you get to pick whatever method you prefer and whatever one would look best. So let's look at number 25. It says 8,974 plus, oh sorry, that's not 1,000, that's a decimal point. 8 and 974 thousandths plus 2 and 154 thousandths. So I have to figure out which method I think would work best. Honestly, for this one, I think it would be easiest to round the whole numbers. So I'm going to look at this number right here, and I'm going to say 9 rounds up. I'm going to round that number up to 9 plus. Then I'm going to look at this one. It's below, it's 4 or less, so I'm going to just keep it the same and say 9 plus 2 equals 11. Here's my box. I need to see that box around what two numbers you added. You're going to be very tempted to just write down 11, but I need to see what you rounded those numbers to. So I need those 9, need the 9, and I need the 2 also written down. All right, then on the last part, number 34,